Yo, what's going on, friends and fam? Everybody in the room, good to see you. My name's Nathan. I'm one of the pastors here. If I hadn't get a chance to meet you yet, then hello. Let's put a name with a face. I'd love to connect with you at the Connection Bar after the service. Just let us know how we can love you, serve you, get to know you a little bit better. For everybody watching online, thanks for hanging out with us. Got an email just before we walked out from a family in Atlanta that's in the hospital there with some family that they're going to stream in the hospital. So big shout out to you guys. We're praying for you as you go through that. I don't know how your mom was, if your mom was similar to my mom, but my mom was a very patient woman. Mama Klein, raising two boys, especially one like my brother Steve, and took a lot of patience. And my mom probably did what your mom did, that when she called to us and like if we were upstairs and she needed us to come downstairs, she would yell up the stairs, "Hey boys, come downstairs." And my brother and I had what is medically called selective hearing, where if my mom was calling us down for dinner, we heard it just like that. But when my mom was calling us down to like clean up the den, for some reason we were unable to hear her voice as she called out to us. But my mom would, if we did not listen, she would give us the 3 count. Your mom ever hit you with the 3 count? After she called out to us and we didn't come downstairs, my mom would say, "Nathan, I'm going to give you to the count of 3 to get downstairs, or there will be consequences." And in the Klein house, consequences was she was going to spank us. Mom was not afraid to hit us. Forehand, backhand, didn't matter. Like she would spank my brother and I. Did not have a problem with it. But thankfully, my mom was one of the most patient women, still is one of the most patient women that I know, because my mom never made it to 3. She would say 1 and then get to 2, and by that time it would register to my brother and I that we were getting ready to get worn out, and she would hear us like jumping off the bed, tearing down the hallway, trying to get down the stairs, and she knew that we would not get there in 1 second. And so she would do maybe what your mom did if you had a patient mom. She'd say 2, 2.5, 2 3/4, 2 15/16. Like I learned fractions because my mom was very patient with us. And, as soon as, it didn't matter how high she had to go, she never made it to 3. Now, some of y'all's moms were so impatient, like they would skip 2. They'd be like, 1, 3, and they'd be up the stairs like spanking you. But thankfully, that my mom was a patient woman, had to be patient, very patient with my brother and I. And patience is actually one of the fruits of the Spirit. It's one of the things that the Bible lays out is if you're going to be a follower of Jesus, there's going to be some results in your life. This just goes to show you how godly of a woman my mom is, because she definitely was patient. Here's our verse, Galatians 5:22. But the Spirit produces the fruits of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law that says that these things are wrong. If you're going to be a man or a woman of faith, then you're going to have patience. Faith and patience go hand in hand. Faith says, I believe that God can do it. And patience says, I just don't know when. And if you don't have patience, then eventually your faith will wear out. You'll believe, I believe God will do it, God will do it, God will do it, God will do it. But when your patience runs out, then you'll begin to walk away from God and say, well, maybe he's not. So I hope that you'll have patience in your life, because if not, you'll end up losing that faith. And great men and women of faith in the scripture, seems like all of their stories involve this act of patience. Faithfully trusting in God, even though you just don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know when God is going to open up the door. You don't know when the prayer is going to be answered. You don't know when your life is going to turn in a better direction, but you're just like, God, I'm just going to continue to believe. I'm going to continue to trust in you. Here's my working definition of patience: slowing down to move at somebody else's pace. That's patience. I think that's spiritually what Paul's talking about, slowing down to move at somebody else's pace. Anytime that you're impatient and that I'm impatient, that's kind of where the breakdown is. I don't want to slow down to move at your pace. I want you to move at my pace. There's times where I'm praying where I'm like, all right, God, here's my prayer, and I need for you to move at my pace. And my pace is right now. I need this answer right now. I want you to do it right now. Don't make me wait. Don't make me beg for it, Lord. But oftentimes, I find that God is moving at a different pace than I am. On your way here, if you were in the left-hand lane and some peasant was in front of you in the left-hand lane going below the speed limit, you got impatient. What was it? The person in front of you is not moving at the pace that you want to move, and so you become impatient. You're going to go to lunch after the service today, and you're going to sit down, and here's the deal. The kitchen is not moving at the same pace that you want to be moving when it comes to getting your food. And so what happens is we get impatient. We get impatient. We don't like to wait. We wish everybody, including God, would work on our schedule and would run at our pace. And so I want to tell you a story today, a popular story out of the Bible that illustrates this connection. If you're going to live a life of faith, then you got to show what Paul says is one of the fruits of the Spirit, and that's patience. I think the most well-known story in all of the Bible has to be the Christmas story, right? The birth of Jesus. Mary, Joseph, the donkey, the star, no room at the end, singing angels, the shepherd with the sheep, 8 pounds, 6 ounce, baby Jesus is born, wise men come, gold, frankincense, Moravian sugar cookies, everything about it. You don't even have to be a Christian to know that story. You know the story of Christmas and the birth of Jesus. But this next story, I think, has to be the second most well-known story in all of the Bible. If you've ever been to a nursery before, you've probably seen a mural of this painted on the wall. There's even an exhibit out in Kentucky where you can see a life-sized version of this that was constructed. You probably had toys of this particular story growing up. There's even a movie starring Russell Crowe that highlights this story. Maybe second most popular story in all the Bible is the story of Noah and the ark. I mean, Noah, we know that story. Noah built a big boat, and then the rains came. God said, bring the animals 2 by 2. It flooded. It rained for 40 days, just Noah and his family. We're on a boat. And then it goes down, the water goes down, and then they send a dove off, rainbow, double rainbow. And then they get off in like brand new start, right? Noah, everybody's heard that story before. But I think there's so much more to the story of Noah than just some dude building a boat. There's so many details in this story that's found in Genesis chapter 6 that when I read, I'm just so challenged that if we are going to be men and women of great faith, we're going to lead a life of faith in following Jesus, it's going to take patience. And Noah here in this story gives us 5 things. If you're taking notes, I want to ask you to jot these 5 things down. 5 ways that I think he's going to show as a man that really wanted to follow God. 5 different times where his patience was tested. And this is not just in his life. This is in your life and in my life. Sometimes every single day we face these things. So if you have your Bibles, we're going to do Genesis chapter 6 is where the story, just 6 chapters into the Bible where the story of Noah begins. But in Hebrews chapter 11, we get a summary verse. And that's where I want to start out this morning. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 7 says this. It was by faith that Noah built a large boat to save his family from the flood. A 1-verse summary that teaches us the first thing that I want to challenge you with this morning that I've been challenged with when it comes to patience, and is this. Jot it down. Number 1, you got to have patience when it doesn't make sense. There's times in your life where your life and what's going on around you is not going to make sense, and that is honestly going to test you. It's going to test your faith, and it's going to test your patience, not just with other people around you, but with God. You got to have that patience. Where Noah lived is interesting. He lived in a place called Mesopotamia. Now, if you're like me and you made a C in geography, you have no idea where that is. That name means nothing to you. So let me break it down to you. Mesopotamia is in modern-day Iraq. Now, I don't know if when you see or hear or think about Iraq, if you think desert oasis, like that's it. There's nothing but sand and hot out there. A couple of years ago, I spent a couple of weeks in Iraq with a friend of mine that's a missionary there. It's hot. It's sticky. There's sand everywhere. In fact, if you look at the map, the closest body of water to the country of Iraq is over 500 miles away. And so imagine this as God begins to speak to Noah and give him the purpose of his life. Noah would have never seen a body of water before. This is not like 500 miles to us is no big deal. Like we can get on a plane and fly thousands of miles in one day. You can get in your car and drive 500 miles and be wherever you're going to be by the end of the day. But Noah did not have planes, trains, or automobiles. He would have never traveled 500 miles away from his house. Noah would have never seen a body of water before. And here we are, where God speaks to Noah and says, I need for you to build a boat. Now listen, if you've never seen a body of water before, there's 100% chance you've never seen a boat before. Like there's no boats in Iraq. There's no such thing as the sand ocean in Iraq. And so God looks at Noah and says, I want to ask you to build a boat. You're going to build not just any boat, it's going to be a huge boat. See, this is what a life of faith involves. A life of faith involves doing things that you've never done before. Maybe that you've never seen before. Maybe that you've never heard of before. This is where Noah would have found himself in this story. He's never seen a boat. He's never built a boat. Now he's got to build not just a boat, but a huge boat, we're going to find out. And thankfully, because Noah was such a great man of faith, that he was willing to be patient with God, even in the things that he couldn't understand. Even in the things that he never heard of before, he shows great patience in that area. There will be some things in your life that God calls you to that will not make sense. There'll be some things in this book that you read that you're like, I've never done it that way before. What is he talking about? Like, what's going on? That doesn't even make any sense to me. And men and women of faith will look at that and show patience. And say, all right, God, if this is what you want me to do, I don't know what it is. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know how long it's going to take me to be there. I don't know how much it's going to cost me. But if this is what you call me to do, then all right. So God called Noah to build a boat, even though he'd never seen the ocean before. Captain Crunch has more experience in the water than Noah does. And yet here's Noah building this big ark. Genesis chapter 6 is where the story is originally found. And in verse 14, here's what God says. It's not just going to be a boat. Let me give you some details about this boat. I want you to build a large boat from cypress wood and waterproof it with tar inside and out. Then construct decks and stalls throughout its interior. Make the boat 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Leave an 18-inch opening below the roof all the way around the boat. Put the door on the side and build 3 decks inside the boat, lower, middle, and upper. Look, I'm about to cover the earth with a flood that will destroy every living thing that breathes. Everything on earth will die. But I will confirm my covenant with you. So enter the boat, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Patience involves not only exercising and when life doesn't make sense, but number 2, patience even when it seems unnecessary. There could be some things that God calls you to do that, like, if you're just being honest, you're looking at God like that seems totally unnecessary. When you read about the dimensions of this boat, 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, 45 feet tall. 450 feet long. Here's a little diagram. That's as long as 1.5 football fields. That's a long boat. 45 feet tall, that's almost as tall as a 5-story building. Think of a 5-story building in downtown Winston. That's how tall this boat was. 75 feet long, I don't have a comparison. It's 75 feet long. That's 75 feet long. That's the width of the boat. And that's what God tells Noah to do. I love Moses. I don't know why Moses is here. That's what God calls Noah to do. Not just an ark, but very specific details. And I love this about Noah. Noah looks at God and says, all right, God, if that's what you want me to do, then I'll do it. It doesn't make sense. I don't know why it's got to be this tall. What I want to do is cut corners, right? If I was Noah, I would have measured 45 feet high. It's 43 and a half, but that's good. Right? What's 1.5 feet between friends, right? That's going to be good. Like just kind of, there's supposed to be an 18-inch gap between the railing and the roof. It makes no sense to me. So if it's 24, if it's 17, that's fine. Just somewhere in the middle. And sometimes that's how we can act with God in our life. We'll read about what he's called us to do and the commands that he has for our life, the guardrails that he places on us to live a life of fulfillment and satisfaction. And we look at God and we're like, do we really have to do that? I mean, can I just kind of do it my own way? Can I take your plan and just kind of tweak it a little bit? And it's not going to be to your exact specifications, but it'll be close. Like, God, are you good with that? And I'm so glad that Noah didn't cut corners. So glad that Noah didn't look at God and say, well, I know what you said, but I think my way is better. Now, Noah had patience even when he looked at the dimensions and said, man, is this really necessary? I don't know if you can relate to that, but do you ever read this book and you look up, it's like, is that really necessary? Do we really have to do that? Is that like, God, are these just suggestions, or these commands, or these recommendations, or what? But a man of faith like Noah did exactly what God called him to do, even when it didn't make sense, even when he's sitting there looking at the blueprint like, man, this is a huge undertaking. Like, what's the story behind that? See, faith involves not just being patient and faithful with the big things in life, but the small things as well. You know, it's one thing for Noah to say, yeah, I'll build a boat, but another thing for him to execute it exactly the way that God called him and told him to. That would have took some great patience. Hey, it's 44 feet tall. Redo it. It's got to be 45. Well, it would be really easier really to do 2 decks instead of 3. God said 3 decks. This is what he said. This is the way that we're going to do it. Faith and patience, understanding that it was a huge undertaking, even showing patience in the small things. That's what Noah did. His daily life, in and out, just listening to God and doing what he said. Verse 19, the story continues. He says, bring a pair of every kind of animal, a male and a female, into the boat with you to keep them alive during the flood. Pairs of every kind of bird, every kind of animal, and every kind of small animal that scurries along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. And be sure to take on board enough food for your family and for all of the animals. Man, what a logistical nightmare. I mean, this is before the days of Google Docs. Noah had to categorize every animal, and not just 2, but 1 girl and 1 boy. That's a lot of looking, right? That's a lot of, no, already got one of those males. Let's find another one. And then you got to figure out what all of these animals eat and how much of that we need and where are we going to store it and where are we going to get it from. And all of the birds of the air and all of the animals of the field. You got to have 1 of each, male and female, and bring them on that boat. It's the preparation process. Do you know, number 3, how much patience you got to have during the process? Your life is a process. God is doing things in your life every single day. He's teaching you. He's molding you to become the man or the woman that he's called and created you to be. And here's the reality. During that process, it's going to take some patience because we don't want to wait. Like, if God wants to do something in my life, great, I'm all in. Can you just do it by the end of the day? Like, no, I don't want to go through hardships for you to teach me. I don't want to go through a tough season if you want to teach me something. I don't want to do that. Just teach it to me right now. Just like download it to me, right? But no, there was a long process of Noah's obedience, a long list of things that he had to do, a process that took a lot of preparation. He was faithful along every step of the way. I get impatient too often. I look at God and he's like, just daily, like just do this today, just do this, take the small steps today, do the right thing today and do it repeated over a long period of time. And I'm like, God, just hurry up and do whatever you're going to do. But not Noah. For years, he gathered every single animal, figured out what they were going to eat, and loaded it up onto this boat, this huge project that he had never done before, and remained faithful and patient even during the process. The 4th area is this: patience when it doesn't happen fast enough. Scholars tell us that it took Noah roughly 60 years to build the ark. 60 years in one project. I'm not talking about 60 years at one job, 60 years on one project. One thing that God called him to do took him about 60 years to build it. I love the fact that Noah didn't just have faith when God called him to something, like when he started it. Man, I'm a starter, right? When you start things, it's exciting and everything's new and you're like, oh man, a boat, I've never seen a boat. This is going to be awesome. And let's buy all the materials and lay it out on the table so we can look at everything so organized. But 60 years into it and there's still no rain. 60 years into it and you're still hammering nails on the same boat. Do you know how frustrating that would be? Do you know the amount of patience that it would take? 60 years of gathering all of these animals and all the logistics of it. And it takes forever. And in my life, in my walk with Jesus, I find that that's when my faith falters sometimes, when it takes longer than I thought. When I've been praying and the answer still isn't yes. Or I've been waiting on God to open up a door and I'm still waiting. Imagine decades passed and Noah still hadn't seen this flood. Still hadn't seen this big event that God was talking about. Day after day, he's just hammering nails, just stacking wood on the same boat. Think about what it would have been like to be like Noah's next door neighbor. Because the Bible tells us that when God looked on the face of the earth, there was only one person on the whole face of the earth that was faithful and obedient to God, and it was Noah. Man, I can't imagine Noah building that ark, decades in the making, and the neighbor probably comes outside and be like, Noah, still here. Oh, man, are you ever going to get that ark built? Oh, hey, on the back end, you got a piece of wood that's backwards. It doesn't. You put it on backwards. You need to like tear the whole thing down. When's this rain coming, Noah? I wonder if it's even going to happen. The ridicule that he would have taken for obeying God for 60 straight years, but nothing on the outside changing. Nothing coming to fruition that Noah had told them about. Man, that would have taken some patience. Patience with God, patience with others. And it's the same thing in your life and mine. When it doesn't happen fast enough and the process is extended, will you still remain faithful? Will you still trust? Will you still believe and let your faith be intact like Noah? Last part of the story, I want to go back to Hebrews chapter 11, the second part of this verse. And this might be the part that's the most difficult for me to understand, gives me the most respect about Noah. Hebrews 11:7 says, it was by faith that Noah built a large boat to save his family from the flood. Listen to this. He obeyed God who warned him about things that had never happened before. He warned him about things that had never happened before. Last time where my patience is tested is this. We got to have patience when things are uncertain. You got any uncertainty in your life right now? Where you just honestly, like physically, emotionally, mentally, relationally, spiritually, you just got to put your hands up and be honest and be like, dude, I don't know what's next. I don't know if this works out or not. Like, I don't know if I come out on the other side. I don't know what the future holds. And there's a ton of uncertainty. And in those moments in life, it's really easy to get impatient. Where are you, God? Why haven't you answered yet, God? Why hasn't it changed yet, God? I'm getting impatient. Why aren't you moving at my pace, God? And when things are uncertain, like it is in Hebrews 11, here's what scholars tell us. It's Genesis chapter 6, right? It hasn't been long that God created the world. Scholars tell us that it has never rained on the face of the earth yet. All of the vegetation on earth is watered by underground springs and wells. Put these pieces together. God looks at Noah and says, I want you to build a boat. A what? A boat. I'll tell you about it later. And on the boat, you're going to open up a zoo. What? Yeah, I'll tell you about it later. Animals, 2 by 2. Why am I building a boat? Because it's getting ready to rain. What? Yeah, rain. What is that? Well, technically you've never seen it before. But it's going to rain so much that the whole earth is going to flood. What? Yeah, flood. That's what happens when there's a lot of rain. What's rain? All right, let me back up, right? It would be like if I stood up in front of you right now and said, guys, you got to prepare yourself because soon, really soon, you're going to walk outside and it's going to frubble-bub outside. So you better gird your loins, right? What does that mean? Is that good? Is that bad? Are we going to have a party? Is this going to be the greatest day ever? Like, what do I need to do? Noah had never heard of the word rain before. He'd never seen a boat before. The surface of the earth had never flooded before. God told him a bunch of stuff that he had never heard. You want to talk about uncertainty? I don't even know what a boat is. And you want me to build one the size of the length of 1.5 football fields? What is going on here, God? And you know what Noah did? Looked at God and said, yes, sir. I have no idea what rain is, but if you say it's coming and I need to be prepared, then I'll prepare. I don't know what a boat is. I've never been on a boat, never seen a boat, don't know how to spell boat, but I'll make one if that's what you told me to do. And I'll be patient throughout the whole process, God. And I'll do it exactly the way that you want me to do it. The Bible tells us that it was things that Noah had never seen before is what God was calling him to. And that's what faith is. But you'll never have faith if you don't have patience. You probably know how Noah's story ends, but the verse that ties it in a bow for me is the last verse in chapter 6. So Noah did everything exactly as God had commanded. Wow. Noah did everything exactly how God had commanded. If you want to be a man or a woman of great faith, it's going to take patience for you to do everything exactly the way that God has commanded. And I believe that God is looking for men and women to do that. Just like he was looking for people like Noah and found that Noah would respond in that way. He's just looking for people to say, God, if this is what you call me to, then I'll do it. And I don't understand it sometimes, and it doesn't make sense sometimes, and it's going to cost me sometimes, and it's going to be for other people sometimes. And there's just a lot of uncertainty, and I don't want to go through it, and it's going to be a process. And I'm impatient with the fact that you haven't even told me how it's going to end and when it's going to end and what it's going to do. But God, if this is what you want me to do, then I'll do it. And I'll listen. And I'll do what you tell me to do. And I'll do everything you tell me to do exactly like you tell me to do it. Man, I hope one day I can get to the end of my life, and I know I've made a lot of mistakes, but hopefully people will be able to say, God, he just did what God told him to do. And sometimes it was hard, and sometimes it didn't make sense, and sometimes it was into the unknown, but man, I just want to do what he told me to do. It's going to take great patience, and I'll be the first to admit I am an extremely impatient person. But let me tell you something that helps me when I'm struggling with patience, when other people and God is not moving at the same pace that I'm moving. I simply remind myself how patient God has been with me. Now, you want to talk about somebody that's made a lot of mistakes. You want to talk about somebody that has sometimes known what God said and did the opposite. Somebody that wasn't faithful with the opportunities that they were presented with. Man, that disobeyed God even though I knew what God said. You want to talk about that person? That's me. And God has been so patient with me. God has been so patient. God was so patient and loves you so much that even while you were still sinning, God sent his only son, Jesus, to die on the cross for you. Can you believe that? Even while you were on the other team, God was so patient with you and wanted to reconcile the relationship so much and wanted to have that relationship with you so badly that he was willing to be patient with you even while you were running, patient even while you were living in sin, patient even when you were saying no. I can't tell you how many times that God has looked down at me and said, 1, all right, Nathan, you heard me. 2, and in my life, God has never made it to 3. So many times God said, Nathan, you're running in the opposite direction. 2.5. Turn around, Nathan. I've got a plan and a purpose for your life. There's forgiveness on the other side of this. Just don't go in that direction anymore. 2 3/4. Come on, Nathan. I know you're smart, but turn around. Listen to me. Follow me. Take the next step. You can trust me. 2 7/8. Boy, God's been so patient with me. He could have been impatient and turned his back on me and abandoned me. And Nathan, I gave you 1,000 chances and you blew it 1,000 times. So I'm done. We're done. Figure it out on yourself. But he didn't. He didn't. 2 17/18. Come on, Nathan. Come on, I'll give you another chance. The forgiveness is there. The grace is there. The mercy is there. The new mercies are there every morning, Nathan. So when I feel like getting impatient with others and getting impatient with God, I think how long God has been on 2 in my life and how many chances he's given me, how many times God has waited on me to move at his pace instead of mine. And that has challenged me to be patient with other people because I want to be a man of great faith. I think you do too, but it's going to take patience. Remind yourself right now how patient God has been with you. Even for you that don't have a relationship with God, do you know how patient God's been with you? And even right now, gives you another opportunity. 2.5, 2 3/4. You could turn around right now and turn back to God. Just say, all right, God, I'm done. I'm tired of running. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your forgiveness. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for another chance. And run down the stairs right now to a God that has his arms open wide. That's the God that changed my life, that was so patient with me. And that's the God that has the same gift and invitation to you today. Let's ask God to give us the wisdom to know what to do with the words that we have just heard and the opportunity that lies in front of you right now. God, thank you for your patience with us. As many times as we've let you down, as many mistakes as we've made, as many times as we've promised you that we would never do it again, only to do it again. And yet in your love and kindness and grace and mercy and forgiveness to us, you showed patience in giving us the opportunity to turn back to you, to accept the gift of Jesus. So God, thank you. God, help us to know what to do. Give us the boldness right now to take that next step as we look at a patient and loving and kind Father that has given us a great opportunity this morning. Pray and ask those things in your Son, Jesus' name.